Zobel Sanje Rivana Shasun Demba Devarish Jidin Jemba Jivun Devia Kano Jiva Nana Tada Menanje Demba Sanje Jumden Debeja Shajan Tubala Chasen no Chudo Jamsuju Demba Jumden Lishin Sheba Dashaba Yada Manzubesan Rivana Shasun Demba Devarish Jidin Jivun Devia Kano Jiva Nana Meba Hada Menanje Sanje Jumden Beja was Shajan Chazen Chudo Jamsuju Demba Jumden Lishin Dajama Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rivana Shasun Devaresha Vanjin Jemba Jivun Devia Kano Jiva Nana Hada Menanje Demba Sanje Jumden Beja Shajan Chazen Chudo Jamsu Che Kanse Kanyin Soba Sajen Dena Kumban Temple Manen Jiten Dena Chojus Tezekya Bajala Cha Azeno Namda Kunga Chodu Sosa Ishi Jazo Sejen Humbo Dawa Chawan Jiten Sumna Gombo Chunyin Jala Cha Azeno Sejo Dema Jimenda Sendon Dawa Jala Cha Azeno Dire Jenda Siva Sumas Yame Jinjen Jala Cha Azeno Gombo Toje Jedema Tamje Jembe Doma Sanamayan Denja Sujin Dishin Jala Cha Taben de Jata Giving as on the Jeto Delama Shojo was in your Jala Cha Chene Terra Laya Dea Lava Tala Shingatama Yadena Yacha The Vajaya Measure Jangava Puso Soba Jaranga Senda Tene Sanje Tembayi Kamara Mamma Juma Seva Shubu Melon Loda Tenda Brundisha Shanum de Tarata Sanam de Edom Jessica Commandant de Ginger Latu and Gadan Nada Shiva Lapju Sibezo and Jovan Jova
To the teacher, the blessed one come beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then I prostrate, with pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom motion like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit and qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dhamma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all saintly, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of suffering, of aging, their destiny.
Sanje Jana Zoje Jana No Chanju Bato Davin Jesoje Batsonum Dola Sanje Drubush. Sanje Jana Zoje Jana No Chanju Bato Dane Jesush. Davin Jesoje Batsonum Dola Sanje Drubush. Sanje Jana Zoje Jana. Chanju Bato Dane Jesush. Davin Jesoje Batsonum Dola Sanje Drubush.
I go for refuge until I'm aligned to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
So I think it's 380, right? Page 380. The intention of the mind-only statement in the descendant into Laṅkā Sutra. So this has two parts. How the statement about mind only with no external reality is provisional, and how to recognize the provisional and definitive meaning of the sutra. So Chandrakirti saying that, so descendant into Laṅkā Sutras, the Laṅkā Sutra kind of saying the mind only so it looks like the Laṅkā Sutra, some part of that is actually intended or intentionally saying, yes, everything is mind. So now, that also Laṅkā Sutra itself again says that it's provisional. So how they recognize the provisional is definitive in the meaning of the sutra. How the statement about mind only with no external reality is provisional. So this has two parts, the showing through the scriptures how such statement is provisional, and number two, the showing through the reason how such statement is provisional. So proving that mind only and no external reality is provisional through the scripture and through the reasonings too. Right? Showing through the scriptures how the statement is provisional. This has two parts, the actual point, and in demonstrating the other similar sutra are also provisional. Like this particular statement of the Laṅkā Sutras, which is explicitly saying that everything is just mind, no external reality, and other sutra like third turning wheel of the Dharma, one particular, sutra of unraveling thought. So these are always the provisionals. So then the actual point, opponent, you may explain the meaning of the 10 ground sutra in the above terms, but there exist other scriptures, such as the descent into Laṅkā Sutras. So in the Laṅkā Sutra, so what appears as external does not exist. It is mind that is perceived as diverse things, what seem to be body, sources, and habitat, I have stated to be mind only. So in this, we are saying this Laṅkā Sutra, particular line, the passage is actually saying what appears external, so to the sensory perceptions, so appears, form, smell, taste, textures, form, sound, smell, taste, textures. So perceive the diverse things. It seemed to be the body, the sense power, sources, the sensual object, habitats is the place or planet, people inhabited. I have stated to be mind only. Eye sense power and form, ear sense power and sound, nose sense power and smell, tongue sense power and the taste, body sense powers and the textures, and your house or your place. Now they're saying that I have stated to be mind only. So now, so these are kind of provisional. Here, the body referred to the sense bases such as eyes, which are physical. Resources are the 5 sense objects, such as form, sound, and so on. Habitat refer to the container of the world. Since nothing external that is separate from the mind, exists, when the mind alone appears as a body, resources, habitat, they are perceived as an object, and things such as body and so on, something external and separate from the consciousness. Therefore, the 3 realms of the existence are mind only. So So now these sutras, what is the intentions? Intention is no external reality. Intention of the particular statements is no external reality. Therefore, everything is, nature of the mind. So the intention and intention of the sutra, not the intention of the Buddha who teach. Because this particular teachings is intended to someone who is suitable for the mind-only school. So therefore, the text intention is negating external reality. The person who is teaching, his intention is not negating external reality. Separate consciousness. Therefore, there's three realms. Three realms exist in mind only. To state that this sutra too is figurative teaching, the text says the sutra that state what are perceived as external do not exist. And it is the mind that is perceived in diverse forms. Such statements are intended for those extremely attached to the forms, form, sound, smell, taste, textures, to help such people run away from matters. So it is only provisional. Now they're saying, this one saying that this particular sutra is provisional because this advice is given to the people who has extremely attached to the five sensual object, in order for reduce their attachment or run away from their attachment. And he says, there is nothing out there, everything is the mind. So the intention of the sutra that state that what are perceived as external do not exist, and that is mind that it is the mind that is perceived as diverse forms, sound, smell, taste, textures. Is this? Such statements are intended for those beings who, because they are extremely attached to the material forms, acts, with lust for things and with anger, with conceit, and so on, and who have thus lost their freedom and whose forceful clinging inclines them towards the grave negative deeds and make them fall short in accumulating merits in the wisdoms. So mind binds by this anger and attachments, intense, anger and attachment. So therefore, this emotion can drive individual to creating many negative karmas and not being able to accumulate the merit and cultivating the wisdoms. So just like meditation on the skeletons taught to help the lustful counter their attachment to the external forms. So the beginner, for the beginner, two kind of beginners. So one who is, from the beginning, some obstacles, two kind of obstacles. One is distractions, someone who is distracted extremely, or someone who is disturbed by strong attachment, lust and attachment. And for those
Buddha also mentioned of the skeleton meditations and the breathing meditations. So like these are the provisional from the beginning to prevent or to reduce the intensity of the negative emotions. So trying to likewise to such people to turn away from the afflictions conditioned by the attachment to matters, even though it is not the actual truth. Buddha spoke of the mind only. This is how we should understand. One might ask, this is how we should understand. So one might ask, what basis do we understand this scripture to be provisional and other definitive? So now we say this is how we should understand. Therefore, it is the provisional. It's just for the people to reduce the intensity of the afflictive emotions. So to respond, the text says, the Buddha himself stated this to be only provisional, and the reasoning too proves it to be only provisional. As for the statement that there is no external reality and it is the mind only, the Buddha himself stated this to be provisional in meaning, and the reasoning too, the proves it to be only provisional. So with regard to the word only in the context of the mind only in the Laṅkā Sutras line, what appears the external does not exist and so on. This master Chandrakirti does not interpret it the same way he did in 10 Ground Sutra. So the 10 Ground Sutra, Chandrakirti interpret that, and there's, three realms is mind only, the three realms, the world is nothing but mind only. So Chandrakirti interpret that mind only means, so two things, material and the mind, both are the cause for your life to be existing, whole, world, universe, the planets, even the three realms. And the material and the mind only is the primary cause, not the materials. Material, yes, it is the cause, but mind only is the primary cause. And Chandrakirti also interpret that also means that mind only means, there is no creator. If there is creator, the mind only is the creator. There is no independent self or person or Atma. If there is something, that is the mind. So 10 Ground Sutra, Chandrakirti interpret that way. Now here, Chandrakirti is not interpreting this the explicit statement, negating the external realities. Chandrakirti said we are not going to interpret that. We simply say it is the provisional. For certain purpose, Buddha have said that there is no external reality. So what is the purpose of that is someone who is strongly attached to the material things, to reduce the intensity of the attachment, Buddha says there is no external reality. So this is not interpretations. So does not interpret it the same way he did in 10 Ground Sutra. So that is the word only does not reject external reality, but an agent and other than the mind. Instead, Chandrakirti acknowledged that here in the Laṅkā Sutra, the word does reject external reality, but he says statement is provisional in the meaning. You get it? Right? So the 10 ground, we say that everything is mind, even the 3 realms is for just a mind, only mind. So now that Chandrakirti says, Buddha did not mean in this sutra is not telling you no external reality. This sutra is telling you, if there is cause for the 3 realms, material and the mind only is the primary cause. If there is creator, the mind only is the creator. There is no other creator. And 10 Ground Sutra. Now, Laṅkā Sutras, when Buddha says, what appears as external does not exist. It is the mind that is perceived the diverse things. What seem to be body, resources, and habitat, I have stated to be mind only. Now, this explicitly negating, rejecting external reality. So that Chandrakirti accepts that. And Chandrakirti says, this is, this kind of teachings for the people who has, extremely attachment towards the 5 sensual object. So, but he instead in provisionals the meaning. The great master Baba Viveka, however, interpret even this Laṅkā Sutra statement as indicated how the mind arises assuming likeness of the body, resources, and habitat as if colored by their shadow-like forms. He understands the phrase, what appears external does not exist, as negating the view of a cognition's perceived object without an aspect or the mental image. Thus, Baba Vivek maintains that the term only does not reject external reality, even this Laṅkā Sutras. Now, Baba Vivek, he has a different way, a different approach to the statement. This now, when the Baba Vivek masters, when he read this line, what appears as external does not exist. It is the mind that is perceived the diverse things. So Baba Vivek saying that each of the consciousness perceive different object, form, smells, sound, smell, taste, textures. And the aspect of each consciousness is no different from the consciousness. The consciousness we call the aspect of each of the form, sound, smell, taste, textures. The aspect is always the part of the consciousness, not the form, the aspect of the form. So aspect means the consciousness, when it sees the color, consciousness also manifests in the form of color. So that is the aspect. Consciousness hear the sound, the consciousness itself manifests in the form of sound. So that's aspect.
Okay. Okay.
So there's a big debate in minority school. I think Vaibhashika school says that consciousness engaging the object through aspects are the mental, and the sensory perceptions without aspect is directly, contact with external reality. Sensory perceptions have no aspect. So aspect and focal image, focal point, and these are very similar aspect, right? So it's some kind of consciousness create the image of that form. So one of the omnipresent mental factors is intention and attentions. Each consciousness has an intention and attention. So the intention means it's the consciousness, one of the mental factors with the consciousness that have the function to draw the consciousness towards the object, pulling towards the object. And attentions means, when you bring your mind, pull your mind towards the object, you also, consciousness, create the image of that form. And consciousness focusing on the image that created by the consciousness itself.
It just persists.
Yeah, it's not really, it's no, I think the aspect has a many form. I think more subtle form and the more, general the aspect. When you have the picture of your grandmothers, so the grandchild, when they see the pictures, this aspect is different, and the stranger who do not know see that grandmother pictures, there's no kind of any projections from there. So when you see your grandmother's pictures, you have the projections. That is the very grosser level aspect. Mind is, mind has construct that. So then when you see the picture of the grandmother, through your kind of the aspect that you have projected, through that you see. The stranger has less aspect of that, but because he has the habit of labeling, and he also creates one of the layers of the aspect, even the strangers, because that there is the habit of imputing, habit of labeling, So there's a maybe thinner aspect for the strangers. The one who's grandchild see, and there's a more kind of thicker line of the aspect. So that's called aspect.
So it almost sounds like consciousness cognizes that there is an object and then goes further and creates the mental image of that more specifically. So if there is no specific habituation to see an object as a specific aspect, that aspect won't be there. So that's what makes me think of like the stranger seeing the picture of somebody being like, I don't know who that is.
Yes.
And then the grandchild or the daughter being able to say, oh, I know that because they've... Okay.
So the both are seeing the same pictures.
Right.
So there's the layers that you create, you're seeing through the layers.
Right.
You know, that layer is from your emotionally construct. You know, so it's you are almost like this particular. You're picking that picture, and then dips in your kind of flavor of image, right? So now you see the picture, not only pictures, it has the flavor of your emotional kind of, you know, kind of the layers of the construct that, you know. So the stranger has not the same as you have projected. The stranger also have the habit of labeling, you know. So this is the grandmother, or this is the mother, or this is the female, or this is something. So he also see his own through his own aspect. So yeah,
and that aspect that is created through the mind is not separate from it. There is no external aspect that is existent.
now here the point is, this is the aspect, and then, so how do you create that aspect? By depending on what? An external realities. You know, there are external pictures of the grandmothers, and then my aspect, my creed, my emotional kind of layers that is constructed or that frame on that pictures. So this is the kind of here as means, Baba Vivek means that this is the aspect, you know. Now the aspect of the form, aspect of the smell, taste, and the textures are no different from the consciousness. They are nature of the consciousness, and the part of the consciousness, or the property of the consciousness. So Baba Vivek is saying, when Buddha says there is no external, means your aspect is not out there, it is a part of the consciousness. You know? I think he get 5 out of 10. That interpretation. So in many of the schools, Buddhist schools, this Sutrantika school, particularly Sutrantika school says, there is no consciousness engaging an object without the aspect. Sensory perceptions of the mental consciousness. So both, you know, so both when they engage, they always, you know, engage an object, perceive things through the aspect. So without aspect, you know, without aspect, impossible.
So that's not to say that there is not an aspect that exists, but just Baba Vivek's interpretation of the Laṅkā Sutra using aspect is not. Chandrakirti says it's not good. Like it's not an accurate one.
Chandrakirti says, you know, yes, this Laṅkā Sutra means no external reality. Baba Vivek says this line is not saying, not rejecting the external reality.
Okay.
So Chandrakirti says, yes, it is rejecting external reality, but, you know, this is for the mind-only people. So almost like, you know, for the kindergarten, what A stands for? Apples. They always say apples, right? So they never say uncle or abbot or above or only apples. So the minority school like those kindergarten. So there's no external reality means, you know, no external reality means for them, you know, there is nothing outside of the mind. And Buddha also, he intended, the meaning of that is he intended it's the mind only. There is no external reality. And to whom? To mind-only school people. Right. So the Baba Vivek says, no, this not intend to reject the external reality. This saying aspect of each of the forms are not external. I think the reason is that Baba Vivek is the midway Savatantrika, midway Savatantrika. So he still, believes that there's some kind of intrinsic property in every phenomena. So this is what else the aspect has any meaning?
Does aspect have any other meaning? What is the actual definition of aspect? A particular part or feature of something, the positioning of something in a specific direction. That's kind of what the definition of aspect, from what I can see, is. So it's almost like from like one perspective of something.
Usually people say, which aspect, you are talking about, which angle you are seeing things, through which aspect. So I'm seeing these pictures through the aspect of favorable.
Yeah, it makes me think
likable.
It makes me think of characteristic.
Because I'm very happy. I see everything's in the aspect of favorable. I'm not happy at all. I think everything is aspect of unfavorable. So you see, the aspect is. So actually, it's the nature of the mind. It is, So this is Baba Vivek saying this.
So if I understand you correctly, Geshe, there's a distinction between aspect and characteristic. It sounds like aspect contains kind of like, you could say, an emotional filter or a way appearance itself is filtered. This is different than a characteristic. A thing may have multiple characteristics, and of course we can perceive at one time any given characteristic, but aspect seems to carry the sense of a filter, how we filter what we see, and we filter it based on a very complex emotional and perceptual texture, as if we were holding, if we talk perceptually, a red filter in front of our eye, and we saw it as red or as green. And emotionally, it's somewhat different, because that has to do with feelings. Am I understanding what you're saying?
I think it's more than my understanding. I think the aspect is not, aspect and the characteristic. So I think when we talk about what is the aspect, what is the, what is something could exist beyond the aspect, treating, right? So, as I mentioned, I'm so happy today. Everything appears to me in the aspect of favorable. So, what is beyond that aspect? The favorable harmony. Beyond that, even there's an enemy. who has, who is trying to harm him. At the time, he was very happy, and that enemy looks very favorable, likable. But, and beyond that aspect, he is not favorable, right? So the aspect, right now we are talking about the aspect. When you talk about characteristic, the characteristic is also the kind of aspect, right? So the attributes, the characteristics are all the aspect that is specifically constructed by individual consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So the consciousness contemplating what is impermanent, what is impermanent, what is the product, and then it creates the aspect of the impermanent.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the condition of suffering? What is the suffering? And then it creates the kind of the aspect of the condition of suffering. And that is the characteristic. The characteristic, I think every aspect is the characteristic. So I think depending on which, now here, some of the Vaibhashika school and some of the minor school, there is the part of the consciousness, has engaged or perceived something without aspect. So Ch15, they're saying that. And the minority schools, there's minority school, this says Dharmakirti is the minority school follower with, consciousness engaging with aspect. And another, some of the minority school masters says, there is the possible of consciousness can perceive things without aspect. And why this is, if you engage through the aspect, there's always possible to not seeing things as it is, because you are seeing through your own aspect. What you see is not necessary to as it is. And then this is, if you think the Buddha, the omniscient, see things through aspect, maybe the Buddha, some levels of the consciousness can mistake it, because it engaged through the aspect. The omniscient create the aspects. So omniscient discriminate. The omniscient, create the aspect of, something is good or bad. So which means the consciousness, the omniscient even, can have mistaken, So this minority school says, therefore, consciousness not always engage through the aspect. And Vaibhashika school is more grosser. The Vaibhashika school says, eye consciousness, no need aspect, is directly perceive the color. Air consciousness, hearing the sound without aspect. Now, which consciousness engaging object through aspect? Thought consciousness. Now, there is very clear in the Vaibhashika school what they meant aspect is imagination. Is the mental projection is clearly they think this is the aspect. So therefore they say sensory perceptions do not engage in object through aspect. So the minority school and every consciousness aspect, Dharmakirti says every consciousness engaged through the aspect. And one of the minority school we call Semzam Nam Jumba. That's the this is a little bit tricky, but that minority school, part of minority school, this says the aspect, when you engage through the aspect, so you have determined or you have kind of, favor, some kind of form. You have your own frame and then you just put on that and say, this is very good, this is very, nice or excellent or something like that. So this mind-only school thinks the aspect is the frame that you create, you projected from your own consciousness, and then put the frame on the things. So now that depending on how settled their understanding the meaning of the aspect. So this particular mind-only school, who believes the Buddha's omniscience, see things without aspect, means now without aspect, the aspect is projections. You're right. So now the mind-only school, Dharmakirtis and many of those mind-only school generally, it says consciousness, the way it engages is through the aspect. Now, what is that aspect? Mind-only school or middle school, even who thinks that everything their consciousness engage is always through the aspect. And they don't say the aspect is necessary to be a projections.
Well, it isn't thought always a projection? I mean, is there any such thing as thought that doesn't involve construction, alteration, labeling? It would seem to me that thought would always involve projection.
Yeah, thoughts always projections. Projection has many layers. Superimposing is projections, and simply projects means naming, labeling, title. So these are also projections. So not necessarily to superimpose, not exaggerations. So the projection has some exaggerations, some just impute or label. So I think Chandrakirti is saying this aspect is not necessary to be mind to create or project something. Whereas aspect is it's the kind of when I say impermanent. So then the second word I say product. So it's each name creates a different aspect. Said this table is impermanent. So I'm creating aspect, one particular aspect, which is that table can be included in that aspect, impermanent. When this table is the product, and then that is another aspect. So the kind of distinctive two characteristics is called as the aspect. Now this not necessary to be project or superimpose. This is just simply from the language and the concept when we distinct certain characteristic from another characteristics. When it smells, I create aspect which is distinct from the color, sound. So that is, and Prasangika school said that is an aspect. It's not necessarily emotionally. There's no flavor that added from your emotions. It's not necessary.
It's similar to how a woman will be called mother from
Yeah.
her daughter,
Yeah.
and the husband will call
Yeah.
her wife.
So the Prasangika school, the aspect is not a projections. It is a distinctive, a unit. That is aspect. So here the Bhava Vivek is saying that when the Laṅkā Sutras you know, what appears as external does not exist. So Baba Vivek says, what appears as external does not exist, means the aspect of the eye consciousness, you know, create the aspect of the external form, color. That aspect is not different from the consciousness. It is the nature of the consciousness. You know. I think he has, freedom to say anything what he wants. But and the most important is not exaggerations. This can be understood, right? But to say this Laṅkā Sutra, particular the passage, is not explicitly not rejecting external reality is not right. It is explicitly rejecting the external reality. So Chandrakirti says, yes, this particular line of the passage is rejecting the external reality, but it is not intent by the Buddha. It is the intentions in the text, because so rejecting external reality is for people who has intensely generate the afflictive emotion to reduce that kind of intensity of the emotional. So therefore Buddha says there is no external reality. So like I always said that sometimes Buddhists, there's some of the non-Buddhist school, the Brahmins, who has so much influence in their mind from their scriptures, and they raise the question, Buddha, is there Atma or not? And Buddha says, yes, there is Atma, which carries the five aggregates. And there's the aggregate they carry by the Atma. So for him, maybe he is not yet suitable for emptiness. So then he wants to know something. And now when Buddha says, yes, there is Atma, which carrying the five aggregates, the burden, and the five aggregates of the burden carried by Atma. So when this Buddha has said, now the question here is, so do you interpret this line, the Buddha word is actually saying there is a permanent I? So the Buddha intention in this passage is general, conventional I. Right? So why Buddha did not say there is no independent self, there is no permanent self? Because he is not ready to understand that. So some lines, the intention is different from the explicit statement. Sometimes in explicit statement is the intention of that textbook or that scripture, but it is not the intention of the person who is speaking of it.
So does that mean a scripture could be provisional or definitive depending on who is receiving that text?
like, I think I get, like, depending on the person who is receiving the teaching, could the teacher, the way that they are giving it, be provisional, or could there be a more definitive interpretation that is given, that is gleaned from it?
Glean means.
Oh no. Kind of like what you, like, when you understand something, you're like, oh, like, I got this from it, I learned this from it, like, I gleaned this understanding.
Like what mind only means. Just, yeah, what would be talking about.
So I think here, maybe it's, for example, there is some kind of, for example, when the parent for the Christmas, they, how's that? They hide the gift for the morning Christmas under the pillow or somewhere, and in the morning, the mother comes to the child, says, "What Santa has brought to you?" So the explicit was saying, she also saying, Santa has brought that gift, and she was asking the boy what Santa has brought for you. So now this is it literally, how's that, meaning, explicit meaning? Explicit, what it's saying is the Santa has brought that gift, right? And mother also says, this is what Santa brought for you. So now, if you ask, do you really meant that Santa has really brought that gift for your child? And parents say, no, I know there is no Santa, right? But for him, so for him, that he believes that, therefore we say it's brought by the Santa. So the meaning is explicit meaning and intentional meaning. Intentional meaning is, no, it's not from the Santa. The explicit, what it's saying is, yes, it's brought by the Santa, right? So similarly, when Buddha says, there is no external reality, right? So then when you ask Shakyamuni Buddha, did you really mean that there is no external reality? And Buddha said, no, for those people, mind-only school, And then you ask, why mind-only school, you have to say external realities not exist. So then Buddha says, because this is very useful to reduce the intensity of the attachment. Like I have mentioned about the meditation, skeleton meditations. Everything is filled with skeleton. The meditating on that and seeing the whole universe is filled with skeleton. And it is not realistic, but it benefits the individual to reduce their intensity of the attachment. So this is like that,
I have a little bit of difficulty that this reduces attachment. It seems to me that even if one were to accept at face value that mind is creating, like, oh, this person is really beautiful, this person is really attractive, it would seem, even if mind is creating it, that's still the case. What seems to reduce attachment in mind only seems to be to have more to do with the breath, focusing on the breath, than anyone saying, oh, your attachment is created with your mind, so now you have less attachment. And I don't think most people would accept that would be the case. They would say, well, even if my mind is creating this, yeah, I still find this person as beautiful as before.
Who is that person?
The person who perceives a self
I want to see that
level,
person too.
and the person who perceives another self who is attractive would still find that person attractive. It doesn't seem to me that the attraction would lessen just because they were told your mind is creating the attraction.
Nobody wants to say something?
No.
Yeah. Larry is just complaining. So this is not reducing, you know. So it's reduced or not. If you're mind-only school, all the mind-only school says, yes, the mind-only school emptying external reality is so much benefiting for them. It is not only reducing anger and attachment, they see this is the only path to overcome all kind of afflictive emotions. Now, only the Larry says, no, it's not going to reduce. I bet it won't reduce. So, I think if you go to see the doctor and they say, doctor, give medicine, I bet it won't benefit me. You know? So now here is saying that just listening to the mind-only school, just listening to no external reality is not going to reduce that. For sure, it's not going to reduce the attachment. You know. So if you understand the mind-only school point of view, and the no external reality means non-dualistic. Everything that I see, I hear, smell, is just coming from my mind. It all rise from my mind. It all sink back in my mind. So the mind is the only mind is the true and intrinsic. Everything is illusion. So if they are really convinced with this kind of point of view, they do not go out, to pursue or to chase some kind of image. They won't do that because it's everything from my mind. Everything comes back in my mind, dissolve in my mind, rise from my mind. So yeah, anyway, so yes, this was actually explicitly mentioned by Buddha in the Laṅkā Sutra, no external reality. So the Chandrakirti says, this is why we say provisional meaning, definitive meaning. Now, so it's Laṅkā Sutra, rejecting external reality is the provisional, and the other sutra, the unraveling thought, mentioning, other power natures truly existing. That is the provisional meaning. And Sutra Unraveling Thought also mentioned the mind basis of all, the foundation consciousness. That is too is a provisional meaning, but all explicitly stated in that particular scripture. So, and then we say, how do you know this is the provisional? Because it was said by, verbally, explicitly, said by the Buddha. And then we say, oh, there's another line. And Buddha says, just the, doctor giving the medicine to the patients. In this way, I give this mind-only school to the mind, these people. So this is also said by the Buddha. And Buddha says, I did not, question number ship. So Buddha says, I did not really, mention the mind basis of all as a separate consciousness, because I don't want people to grasp on that mind basis of all as a self. That is also Buddha said, And Sutra Unraveling Thought also mentioned there's the final achievement, ultimate, the final achievement. There's the three, the final achievements. So which means the hero arhat, solitary arhat, Buddhahood. So these are all finals. And then the another sutra, they said there's a final achievement, is just only one, the enlightenment. There's a three and there's a one. So this is why Chandrakirti Navijana tradition here is, now if you don't use the logic, just rely on the scriptures, it's like you are like a, I would call like a damaru. So both sides, this scripture says there is no external, there's a three achievement, the final achievement. And another sutra says there's only one, so you become the damaru. Tak, 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 tak. So this is why you have to now, there is no other options. So you have to use the logic and the reasoning. The final determinations determined by the logic and the reasoning. So the external, the great master Baba Vivek, however, would interpret even this Laṅkā Sutra statements as indicating how the mind arises, assuming the likeness of the body, resources, and habitat, as if colored by their shadow, like forms. Now, I think this, I still, having hard time to catch the exact meaning from this, the sentence. As if colored by their shadow, like forms. So when I read in Tibetan this, there's no color in anything. So longevity, body, resources, and environment, and these numbers, their aspect, now it's saying that, for example, eye consciousness and eye sense power, and what is the sources, resources, the form, color for the eye consciousness resource. Now saying, number dawa means that aspect of the form, eye consciousness, number dawas, that aspect of the form, aspect of the color. So this is like a shadow in the body is not separate. So kajua jewa changes. So kajurwa jewa changing. So kajurwa means the transformation of the aspect. When you see first the white color, the aspect is, consciousness create aspect of the white. Orange color, consciousness create aspect of orange. So something that keeps changing the aspect in the consciousness. This consciousness that, constantly changing and the consciousness which is experiencing all of them. So this eye sense power and the color is like a body and the shadow. It's saying the body and the shadow. Yeah, this is why I when I read the English part, it's a little bit, could not really understand it. If colored by their shadow, like form, he understands that phrase, what appears as external does not exist, as negating the view that cognition perceives object without an aspect. So there's a because Baba Vivek is saying that there is no consciousness without aspect. So if the consciousness with aspect all the time, so that very aspect is like a body in the shadow. It's no different. So Baba Vivek maintained that terms only does not reject external reality. Even these Laṅkā Sutras, the passage. So now we can still ask Baba Vivek, then why Buddha explicitly, there is no external reality. So, and for what reason, if he is not rejecting external reality, why it say no externals? Or you say, if this is just about the aspect, not the external reality, why the people who, Buddha has taught this particular teaching for certain specific audience. So those audience, when they listened to this teaching, they understood no external reality. So demonstrating that other similar sutra are also provisional. Now other sutra. As for other sutra that may be of same types, they too are indicated by this scripture to be provisional. When you understand this Laṅkā Sutra provisional, and then you can understand the similar type of sutras also provisional. So not only in the statement about the existence of the mind only and the non-existing of the external reality in the line, what appears external does not exist, the provisional in meaning. As for other sutras, they may be of same types as the one already mentioned and held by Chitramatha definitive. So for the Chitramatha is the definitive. So I think definition of the definitive is a little bit different. In my own school, literally as it is the definitive. So something that's not literally is provisional. Chitramatha's definitive, they too are indicated by the scriptures cited below to be provisional meaning. So here the commentary states, what are those sutras of same kind? They are the statement found in Unraveling the Intent Sutra. Sutra, the unraveling thoughts, sometimes they say, where in the presenting the three forms of identitylessness, it speaks of non-existing of the imputed natures and the existing of the dependent natures. Likewise, there are statements such as, so the three forms of identitylessness. Now the sutra unraveling thought is, kind of commenting on the second turning wheel of the Dharma. So there's the story, when the Buddha, in Valchapik, when the Buddha teaches the Prajnaparamita, the sutra, particularly Heart Sutra like that, and even the five aggregates not intrinsically existence. So they're kind of in the Sutra Anurani from the beginning. There's a story that, and many of the bodhisattvas, some of the bodhisattvas, sitting very, as back, So those some confused. Many of those in the front bodhisattvas, they understand exactly what Buddha is trying to teach, the absence of intrinsic existence. So that absence of intrinsic existence not making sense at all. They couldn't digest some of the bodhisattvas. And they could not raise the questions because the presence of the Buddha, they have doubt. They could not really understand that they could not raise the questions. And then one of the bodhisattvas, the great bodhisattvas, he kind of sensed that many have doubt, could not really comprehend what Buddha is saying. And then next, some other place, and bring those bodhisattvas, the minority bodhisattvas, and he kind of, behalf of those minority school, and he asked these questions. Why you say, even the five aggregates, absence of intrinsic existence? If everything is intrinsically absent, nothing intrinsic, so which means to us is nothing exists in general, nothing at all. And then Buddha has to, give this minority school teaching. Buddha says, not truly existing, empty, or absence of intrinsic, unborn, unarising, divided into three. So I will divide it into three. So when I say the other power natures, unborn, unarising, means they do not arise from, uncaused, non-caused, or uncaused, bodies. So it is not arising from uncaused, or so that I meant for the other power natures. When I say it's not intrinsic for the imputation of natures, I exactly mean imputational factors do not exist intrinsically, not truly exist. So then it says, other power natures are truly exist, they arises from their own cosmic conditions, so therefore as other power nature, therefore the other power natures are truly exist. Once the other power natures truly exist, then the emptiness of the consciousness, emptiness of the other power nature also truly exist. So I think this kind of, so Buddha, I think he cannot insist that what he understands has to be understood by the audience. So he, depending on the individual, mental dispositions of the audience, according to the capacity and the Buddha teaches. So anyway, statements unraveling thought, wherein the presenting the three forms of the identity as other power natures, imputational factors, and then, and here they use another term, Jeremy Hawkins used thoroughly established natures. It's emptiness. Yongzhu. It speaks of the non-existing of the imputed natures and the existing of the dependent natures. Likewise, there are the statements such as the appropriating consciousness. In this sutra, they're saying that appropriating consciousness is deep and settled. Lembe numbership subject ha, seventh chun junship up, and all seeds springs forth from it like a flowing river. Now he was referring to the mind basis of the foundation of consciousness, saying this is the appropriating consciousness, the consciousness that goes to one life to another life. And it is deep and settled, means deep means it is always remain while the person is alive. It's the foundation of consciousness always dormant state, and it, every consciousness is bubbles from that, arising from that, and is very settled because it seems like inactive. So like subconsciousness, settled. All seed spring forth from it. Eye consciousness, air consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness. So from it is like it's infinite, non-stop, flowing river. To conceive it as self would be inappropriate. So I have not taught this to be childish. So I did not say they're kind of, the foundation of consciousness. But everything you are saying, but therefore I'm not saying it. Lemon number ship subject seventh and chewing juju. Therefore, I did not say this is self of the person. So, in that sutra, the differentiation is made between the imputed natures devoid of existing by virtue of intrinsic characteristic and the dependent natures existing by virtue of such intrinsic characteristic. In that Chitramatha systems, existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristics remains impossible for such imputations as the two selfhood superimpose on a person and a phenomena based on their identity and attributes. So now my new school, a little bit, So they also the same as old school, they grasping the self, grasping the phenomena. So the grasping of self, my new school, their understanding of where they define the grasping of self is independent self, independent I am. And the grasping of the person, again, grasping the self, person, or the phenomena. Phenomena is, now they're saying, all the other power natures like table, house, peoples, trees, are the basis for labeling. And who is labeling? In this is your thought is labeling. So what when you label the when you name the table, and what happens, and then it creates the imputation factors. This is table, means this you are giving a name of this thing as a table, and now the thing that you are giving a name of the table, that thing from when it has it's almost like maybe it's the birthright. It's not the birthright of naming it as the table, but it's more to your thought. So your thought wants to name it table. So now this becomes the basis for the name is. This is that is the imputation factor. It is the characteristic. So you being called Logan, you become Logan, or you being basis of naming Logan, is Minority School says that is the imputation factor. That is the aspect. That is the characteristic. It's solely constructed by the thought. And yourself and your characteristic, the characteristic that my thought is imposing on you. So so this is like some people say, oh, this is a very good person. This is he's very good musicians. So they keep naming because you are the basis for that naming. And so you don't have to be produced to name certain name. You are not born to be named, to choose the name. So we say table, this table is born from cosmic conditions, so from the top of the table, from the legs of the table, design the tables, not determining that I want to be called table. So you can also give to someone, and they can use, like from animal, they can use the boat, or someone you can use the chair, right? So because from the nature of the product is not determining, it's not deciding to name anything. There's no particular name, but it's all, when it named, is 100% from the thought. So sometimes people can name table, table, if the table was given by your grandfathers for the reminder or your grandfather. When grandfather died, you can name the table the grandfather. Mr. Polo. So you can always say, Mr. Polo is there or snore. So kind of, is a table from the is maybe still gonna say it's not the birth right to name table. So but is it become the name of the table or the chair or whatever is is the characteristic that is projected, imputed, imposed by the thought. So now that becomes the imputational factors. Imputational factor and the basis. So when you empty that imputational factors within the conditional phenomena, and then you understand thoroughly established natures, the emptiness of the table. So Minority School said that. It's the emptiness of the table is. It seems like emptiness of the table is the attributes. For example, when I say this table is the product, that is the attributes. Product. And it is the table. And then that is the imputation on the nature or the Rangshin. And then its product is imputation of factors for the attributes. It is impermanent. It is IKEA products. So many names. So these particular things become the basis of many names. So that each of the names and I think particularly it's used that becoming basis for many names is not born from cosmic conditions. It is rather more imposed and projected by the thought. So emptiness is on that level, in not finding, not truly existing of the imputational part is the emptiness. So I think that makes them very, very comfortable seeing other power natures in things that born cosmic conditions are always true. You know, there's nothing wrong with things that are. You can feel, you can touch, you can see. There's a purely, truly exist. So which one is not truly exist? The things that you name, the attribute, the characteristic, the aspect, you keep changing, constantly creating. Those creations, matter factors, are not truly exist. Yeah, minority school sometimes it sounds like they are very intelligent, sounds like they're very intelligent, more intelligent than the Prasangic school. So it's more, I think they can get better job in this university. Prasangic school is very forward, right? As it is, they're trying. The minor school show the intelligence and this and that things, So kind of superimpose on the person and the phenomena based on their identity and attributes. But many of the imputations pertaining to the identity and properties of things do exist on the level of a relative level. In the sutra itself, although the both dependent nature and perfected natures. Now here they use the term perfected natures. And Jerry Hogan's in the Essence Eloquence, and his translation always said thoroughly established nature. So this is exactly in Tibetan word, Yongsutuba, Yongtup. And in Tibetan, and Manoni school use that term, thoroughly established natures. Now this translator used perfected natures are stated to possess the existing by virtue of intrinsic characteristic. The reason why only dependent nature is mentioned in the commentaries in the passage cited above is because the dependent natures is the primary object of the dispute between Madhyamika and Chittavatas when it comes to the question of the true existing or its lack. So the Madhyamika and the minority school, the basis for the dispute, what they are disputing is based on other power natures, conditioned things, is truly existing or not existing. Therefore, in the sutra, explicitly mentions imputation factors not truly exist, other power natures are truly exist. So this is because while the perfected nature or thoroughly established nature is necessarily defined on the basis of the dependent nature as well, Chandrakirti's traditions maintain that kind of differentiations made in sutra unraveling thought is only provisional in meaning. So further, there is in that sutra the presentation of the 8 classes of consciousness. So in this Unraveling the Thought, also mentioning 8 classes of consciousness, where it speaks of the foundation consciousness, or the mind basis all, that is this separate from 6 classes of the engaging consciousness. 6, like 5 sensory object, 1 mental consciousness, and a mind basis all, and the grasping of self on the basis of the foundation consciousness as the 8 consciousness. In the passage that begins the appropriating consciousness, this statement too is to be interpreted as the provisional in meaning, and if there is no foundation consciousness, there cannot be 7th afflictive mental consciousness. The 8th, the word, the words and so on in the commentary on this way.
Geshe-la, is the foundational consciousness, is that the mind basis of all?
Yeah,
Same.
So here each translator, they brings their own vocabularies. We don't have the fixed vocabulary. Now here's too much liberty is confusing. So many people don't like liberty. Presenting 8 consciousness. Appropriating consciousness statement with the interpreted. So when you the foundation consciousness not is a provisional, then the 7 consciousness also not true. Spade means 7th afflicted mental consciousness. 8 the word and so on. The 8 the words and so on. The commentary on these verses indicate the following 2: the rejection of external reality in the sutra, and the statement about the ultimacy, the ultimate of 3 vehicles. So these are the differentiating in 3 characteristics: other power nature, imputational factor, thoroughly established natures as 1, that is a provisional, and the second, mentioning of the 8 consciousness, that is provisional. The third, rejecting the external reality, that is provisional. The fourth statement, the final, the ultimate goal, 3 final ultimate goal. So that is the provisional. So Chandrakirti says, the 4 need to be understood as provisional. Because the final goal is always the one, the Buddhahood. So, and in some of the minority school things, the final goal is 3. So which means if you attain the Arhat, the hero Arhat, then that is the final. Now there is no further to improve yourself to attain enlightenment. That's the final. And if you attain the solitary Arhat, and that is the final, and there's no, the further to go, and then enlightenment. And then many of the in the Mahayana Sutra they mentions the final goal is the one. Every sentient being has Buddha nature. Every sentient being has the Buddha natures. Every sentient being has a potential and possible to attain enlightenment. So these are three final achievements or three final goals are provisional. Thus, altogether, there are four types of the statement, the unraveling the thought sutra, that need to be interpreted here as a provisional in their meaning. If we fail to cultivate decisive understanding of these issues of the how to interpret certain scriptures and statements as a provisional, we will comprehend neither Madhyamika nor Chittamatra through, Chittamatra thought in general. The more specifically, we will fail to appreciate unique standpoint of this tradition of Chandrakirtis. Seeing this, I have explained these in the detail, differentiating the provisional and definitive meanings. So I think it looks like the Lamazunga mentioned in the Essence of Eloquence. The following specific phrase is unraveling the intent sutra as cited in the Asanga's summary of the Great Regal are the one that state none existing of the external reality. So external reality, how he said that, O blessed one, is the image that is the object of concentrations different from the mind or not? The blessed one replied, the Maitreya, it is not different. Why it is not different? Because the consciousness defined purely in terms of cognizing of its object. So I have stated. Number Rimbatams. This particular also is kind of saying that no external reality. Usually, I think, the concentrations is like through the meditations, and then you kind of through the meditation of the concentrations, when we kind of construct or when we happen to have a vision of the deities. So now here's that deities, that image or that reflection of the image of the deities is not intrinsic and not external. It is, it is there, as long as the concentrations that is, continuously creating or constructing that reflections. So therefore, it is the part of the concentration. It is the part of the consciousness. So the vision of the deities, there are many. Some in the dream, and that is purely imaginations. Some, when you awake, you can see with your eye. So these are more solid than the deity that's in your dream. So things that you see, but still it says, is the form is belongs to your concentration. So I think if the deity is part of the consciousness, part of the concentrations, and the mandala of the deities, and yourself, instantly, manifest in the deities, the letters, in the directions, each directions, west, and all are, as a part of the concentrations. So once you centered yourself, your energy is centered, and then from the energy you create a different form of the color of the deities and the different directions. So these are, kind of, it's always there, as long as these concentrations, you're centered yourself in the mandala, and you tend to see every direction. There's a different part, different color of the deities on the top and the surrounding. So now the question is: are these really out there, or are your mind is creating? And then says, yes, your mind. So now when you say, if your Prasangya school, if your mind, it is like dream, no. Right now, the color they see is mind is creating your mind and sense power. And then things, the outer elements. Similarly, in the deities, that if you see with your sensual perceptions, it's not only like it is not just like a dream. It is, there's something to do with your energies, and the energies, your mind, and the power of the concentrations all together create the real mandala and the real deities. So these deities are real, until your concentrations dissolve back to the normal consciousness. Okay. Any questions? I think mind only school, what do you call it? The intentions and what they kind of, I think their intention is very good, but totally rejecting external realities, and one thing is very uncomfortable is when you awake, when you sleep, everything is almost the things that you see as the same. In your dream, your imprints reflect in the mind. In your awake, again, imprints reflect. That, is very kind of wonderful. Obviously, it's not right. Something that's not correct. Maybe there is a good intentions, there is a good purpose, but the very idea, when you, with open eye, you see the imprints reflects. With closed eye, imprints reflects. And everything is the imprints. So why do you need eye, So what is this, how say, what is special with having eye sense power? What is special with your air sense power? Why, what is the special with air, what do you call it? The, how say, no. The machine that you put in air.
Eardrum?
Machine.
Oh,
Hearing aid?
Hearing aid, yeah. Hearing aid. If the hearing aids is making, difference for your eye consciousness, so which means that sound that you hear can be amplified by the air machine. Is not the imprints of your consciousness. There's nothing, so from the foundation of consciousness, the potentiality is not manifesting in the sound. If everything is from the inside, Why do you need to go and see the doctors? Why do you need to put some medicine in it? That's really kind of very, very obvious that there's some kind of, it's not perfect. But when it comes to intention and purpose, it's good. Chanju semjo rinpoche, ma jeba na jejuji, jeba nyamba, meba yu, konde kondo pebaji. Tonye tawa rinpoche, ma jeba na jejuji, jeba nyamba, meba yu, konde kondo pebaji. Pama semje tamje, deda denjuji, mendo tamje, tatu tongwa, chanju semma, kanda sushu. Teda guje molom jumjiruji, kare rabe kwe bishi, penda dawa ma nuju. Jere zawa, tenzin jazo yishabe, side badu denjuji.
May the precious Bodhi minds not yet born arise and grow. May the point of no decline increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May the point of no decline increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother sentient beings have all happiness, and may all the lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful Ch15 and Gyatso, remain in this world until sunset.
Thank you very much.